Okay.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to another in the series of the Marching to March webinar series from PhUSE. Today, we're going to provide an overview of some new projects that have begun over the last 6 months that were initiated out of the event in March. And we'll also provide an overview of the upcoming CSS, which is surprisingly right around the corner, coming up in March. And we've opened up registration and are filling up fast. So this is Chris Decker, PhUSE FDA liaison, and I'll be providing a quick overview for those that most everyone already knows about the collaboration, but I wanted to provide a short overview, and then I'll hand it off to our presenters today. So we will have three presenters from various projects that are ongoing within the collaboration. So I put this up many times before, but I wanted to put up the mission of the computational science collaboration again. And I won't read it, but I do want to focus on two key words here: transparent and non-competitive. Our goal is to get together as an industry, both from academia, regulators, industry, and technology, and really talk about the computational needs that we have across both standards, technology, process, and work towards finding solutions to make the process better. We have currently had 5 working groups: optimizing the use of data standards, emerging trends and technologies, standard analysis and code sharing, non-clinical topics, and the semantic technologies group. And all of those groups are governed by a steering committee who oversees the projects and the activities within those groups and facilitates communication both within the working groups, across the working groups, and with other organizations. Today, of the 3 topics that we have today, we have 3 projects from 3 of the different working groups today. So looking forward to hearing about those activities. Just a quick plug for going on and looking at our current activities. The PhUSE dashboard has an overview of all active projects that are ongoing within the working groups. We then have a catalog of all deliverables that the computational science collaboration has produced over the years, and then ones that are under review. If there's any that we have that are currently under review, those will be listed there. So I wanted to move on to talking about the Computational Science Symposium. So there are 2 components to the collaboration. One is the ongoing working group and the efforts that volunteers put forward to move these great things forward. And then there's our annual conference in March, as well as a conference we started for the first time last year in Europe in the June timeframe. And it does look like we're going to continue that initiative and more information to come. But the Computational Science Symposium, the CSS, will take place in March of next year in Silver Spring, Maryland. And we'll have a similar format as we've had in the past, with an opening session on Sunday evening where the working groups share their what they've accomplished over the last year, and we'll have an open discussion and a lot of networking and collaboration. We're introducing a new event. We're just in the beginning stages of this year, called the Linked Data Hackathon. I'll talk about a little bit more of that in a minute. And then, as always, we have our FDA session, which becomes more, I think, practical and helpful as we go through our years of running this conference. Just a reminder that we only have 300 spots because of the facility and the closed nature of the collaborate, or the need to have people together collaborating. We have 300 spots available, and it's already filling up. We opened registration about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and I think we already have 40 or 50 people. So I really would strongly recommend that people not wait, because when we hit that 300, we have to say sorry and move on. So I would suggest you register early. As I mentioned, the agenda on Sunday, we'll have an opening session and a workshop on an introduction to linked data and graph databases. On Monday, we'll have our FDA session, which the FDA has decided that they want to really go into and give a day-to-day insight into the review and analysis process. So there'll be a series of CEDAR reviewers that will walk us through what they do with the standards, the data they receive, and how they review it. We'll then have our normal working group breakout sessions, a poster session in the evening, and another workshop on code sharing. On Tuesday, we'll again have our working group breakout sessions. We'll wrap up with an industry panel, and then we'll all go back to our jobs and work with our working groups and our projects. Did want to talk a little bit about an activity that's being pulled together called the Linked Data Hackathon. So the idea here is that there's been a project ongoing in the Emerging Trends Working Group around the next data exchange format, what that looks like, what are the important features of it. And so there's a partnership being formed between that group and the Semantics Technology Working Group to look at actually testing this, doing some proof of concepts about developing an exchange format in various formats and evaluating the pros and cons of each of those formats. So this is something sort of being organized now. They'll probably start some work after the first of the year with the goal of having a hackathon or some sort of get-together around the conference. So it's still forming. There's nothing in concrete yet. The group is putting it together. And so we could suggest, if you're interested in this, to contact Tim Williams or Scott Balvuni, who are looking to put that together. And so I'll get back to the agenda. I think you've heard enough of me talking, and I want to move it on to our working group and project leads, who will give you a overview of some of the really neat projects that volunteers are working on within the collaboration. So I'm going to hand it off to Mary Nilsson from Lilly, who's one of our longtime contributors and co-leader of the script sharing group. And I will let her take it from here. Okay.
Okay, do you see my slide and hear me okay?
I see your slides, Mary, and I hear you, so we're good to go.
All right, great. So I'm Mary Nilsson. I'm one of the co-leads for the Standard Analyses and Code Sharing Working Group. And I will share with you a couple of the new projects going on, but we're also going to sneak in a few project updates from our existing projects as well. And apologies again to those who have been part of this group for a long time. I know you've seen this a lot, but for anyone who might be new, I always still like to show it. So our working group's vision and goals. We want to leverage crowdsourcing to improve the content and implementation of analyses for medical research. So this includes looking at recommended analyses and displays, and we focus on the data domains that are common across therapeutic areas. And then we also work on developing code for these recommended analyses. And then we do host a script repository to store any program code in the medical research area that people might be willing to share. So here's our vision more in graph format. So while there's been a lot of progress getting into standards from trial design all the way through collection and observed data and analysis data set, one of our project teams is focusing on tables, figures, and listings and trying to come up with recommendations for that last piece of the process. And then, as I mentioned, we are hosting a repository that's a place to keep shared code that everybody can contribute to and also take from. And this would include code related to the recommended displays from the white papers, but also any contributed code that someone might be willing to give. And it's, although right now it's a little heavy with SAS and R, it's not intended to be limited to any particular type of system. Okay, so we have 6 active projects now. So we used to have 5, so now we have 6. We do have this 6th one, which is the Test Data Factory. So that's a project who's looking at creating some better test data sets for people to use for multiple purposes. In particular for our purpose, it gives us a way to have more robust data to develop our scripts for. So the scripts that are being developed for the recommended analyses and displays will have better test data to test that out. The CDIS pilot data is good, but it does have some limitations. It's in the older format of SDTM, Atom. And then It also is a study, for example, that doesn't have a follow-up phase, so it does have some limitations. So this has been pretty stable for our working group for a very long time, at least to the focus areas. We're focusing on standard analyses, and we're focused on code sharing. And then we do have a project to help with communication, promotion, and education. So our focus areas have remained pretty stable, but we do have this additional project to help with the code sharing part of things. So our data, our script discovery and acquisition project team, this is not a new project, but just a quick update. This is the project that's been facilitating receiving Jumpstart programs from the FDA. And that work is continuing. So we did have a couple scripts come in 2015 and additional scripts in early 2016. And those have all been tested, but currently they're being updated to just be kind of created in a more user-friendly manner, so that it's a little easier for people who weren't the coders of the Jumpstart, right? To be a little bit more user-friendly way to have these scripts. So that's in progress and should be done by the end of the year. There was an instructional presentation on this topic at the annual conference, and we imagine at the March 2017 symposium, our evening workshop will most likely cover these particular scripts in more detail for people. And we have been receiving other scripts from other groups, non-clinical scripts and scripts related to data handling have also been contributed. Our repository content and delivery project team, they're making progress. So they're working on developing code for the recommendations in the standard analyses white papers. And so there's progress being made there. The repository governance and infrastructure project team has made some progress too. So the repository has been expanded to have a place for some of these additional scripts that are being contributed. The group is growing, so I guess every time there's a conference or symposium, we always get a few more people interested. So that's good news, and certainly even more people are welcome. So we encourage people to join any of these project teams. So the test dataset factory is our new project. So I kind of already gave a brief update, but we can go in a little bit more detail. So a lot of our PhUSE projects do develop scripts or concepts that need to be tested with trial data sets. And the existing pilot data set, while it's still useful and has been great to have, it hasn't been sufficient to test some of the things that we need to test. So this particular project team is looking at creating test data sets. So instead of taking maybe real data, might simulate some data, and you can put in requirements in what your data set wants to have. So from a standard analyses group perspective, if we have certain recommendations on certain topics, we might want some data to actually show how different definitions may vary your results. And so if we want that to show those kind of things, we would need our data to have certain types of patients or scenarios to occur. We might want to look at very specific labs and different distributions of labs and show how the analyses would differ depending on the distribution. So this would be very beneficial for not only our working group, but probably other initiatives across the industry as well, to have some good variable test data sets. So this project team, meetings will start if they haven't already started. It's early, but we do have, I guess, enough volunteers to get the meetings started. However, this project team could absolutely use a lot more members. So if there's any interest in this, we encourage you to contact Peter Schaefer, or you can contact me. The other project that's new, that's actually not quite an official project yet. So the last time we gave a webinar, this was just a project idea. There was an idea to have a project to have best practices on data collection instructions. So having different ways of collecting some of these very standard types of data, like adverse events, medications, disposition, all of that variation has caused some challenges in trying to come up with some standard analyses. So some of our recommended analyses wouldn't even be possible if a particular company didn't collect data in a certain way. We do want to have the ability to share best practices, and we're hoping this project will get off the ground. So it kind of has been moved away from just an idea to actually a project that will hopefully happen. We do have a project lead identified now, and so this next step is to actually submit a proposal for it to become an official project. So assuming that gets approved and all goes well, we would definitely need some people in this project. And again, it would be great if you contact any of your colleagues who you think might be interested and let them know this is going on, because it's something that I think would benefit everyone, not only from an analysis perspective, but also this should reduce queries if we can kind of align on some best practices on collection. That way sites don't have to deal with different instructions from every study to study, and then that certainly decreases quality if they're dealing with a whole lot of variations across the industry. Okay, our analysis and display white paper project team, 5 white papers have been finalized. And in 2016, we've been working on this 6th white paper, and it's the adverse event white paper, and we are hoping to be done either the end of this year or early next year. The review cycle has been completed for this, so right now we're just working on incorporating all the review. And thank you for all the people who did participate in that review. We did get a fairly good level of participation, so we were quite happy with that. There's room for improvement though, so we still could use more people that participate in these review cycles for our white papers, but it seems like with every white paper we improve more and more and get more and more participation. So we hope that continues, and hopefully we can expand that even more. So then the next white paper, the 7th one, the one in the queue, would be one on the hepatotoxicity analyses. So that will, hopefully the draft will be ready for review before the March 2017 symposium. So I guess I'll just reemphasize, we love more volunteers. We always could take more project team members and more participation in our reviews. I think our biggest challenge now is also trying to socialize our deliverables. We need people to know about these white papers. I still think we're at a position that if you surveyed the statisticians and medical people within companies and at the FDA, it would probably be a pretty small percentage of who knows about these white papers. So that's our communication project team, and all of us hopefully will work in 2017 to really improve this. I think the finalization of the adverse event white paper will give us a reason to really kick off an aggressive communication plan. Okay, and then this is just the different ways you can get into the list box so you can make sure you're part of the communications. All right. We pass it on.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And while she passes it on to Mary Banach, I do want to make a quick note that I forgot to make in the beginning. If you have any questions during the course of these presentations, feel free to put them into the chat box or the question box in the GoToWebinar, and we will answer them at the end when we've completed all the presentations. So feel free to enter them in there, and we'll do our best to answer them as we end up at the end. So I'll be quiet now and let Mary take over.
Hi, this is Mary Banach. Can everyone see my screen?
I can see it, Mary, and I can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, my presentation is going to be a little different than Mary's. I'm going to focus on, I love the deliverable, the PhUSE deliverable template. So basically this is going to be a plug for every group that ever starts to use the PhUSE deliverable template from the beginning. It has changed our lives dramatically. So this is the introduction to the clinical development design framework. You'll notice in the PhUSE wiki, it's called Representing CPD and RDF. You'll even notice the title on this presentation said it's clinical program development, and I will actually speak to all those things in our slides. Okay, and I'm using 2 computers, so okay. first slide is our presentation outline. I'm reversing the order because I would like to present our working group and thank them all for all the accomplishments, and I'm going to present that at the beginning. Then we will look at a couple of slides reviewing the history of this project and our original plans. Then we will, thanks to Scott, we're going to talk about stepping back and looking at the PhUSE deliverable template and how this changed our project and really made our project, really gave us accomplishments. And then we will look at slides that look at the PhUSE deliverable template, the overview, purpose, scope, definitions, problem statement, current recommendations, because they really affected our project and help us get it together. And lastly, we'll have a couple of slides that I have dreaming in caps because in the future we would like to do this, but we're still working toward there. Okay. So this is our team, and they're fantastic. They have spent, I would say everybody has spent at least a day a week or sometimes more helping and reviewing and writing and doing, working on this project. And we actually have been a year and a half, but it's been the last, since the last CS meeting that we really got it together and started using the PhUSE deliverable template and putting together our project. And I want to thank Mitra Roca especially. She's our project manager, our FDA representative, and general support for all our questions on this project. She helped deal with addressing conflicts of interest and making sure that everybody was participating in a collaborative fashion. And we found that was really necessary. And then I must thank Hamsum Ko. He has checked every word on every one of my slides, on every one of our papers, and has really brought up good questions, helping us to defend why we wrote it in this way and how we would explain it to a stakeholder. Okay, this is our original project. This comes from Laszlo Bosco at AstraZeneca, and this was the Smart Program Design Information Model from AFIA. Laszlo presented this at the 2014 CDISC Interchange and detailed the difficulties the industry has experienced in capturing the design and decision history. The paper's in the DIA journal, so it's really good reading. Laszlo, Ian, and Johan, who are currently on our project, worked on this program. It was well structured, but it was overwhelming in execution. It required that a linear relationship be followed from start to finish with no deviations. So it got too much for anybody working on it. After Laszlo's CDISC presentation, I asked Wayne Kubik, CTO of CDISC at the time, why this wasn't a CDISC protocol design group. And Wayne pointed out that this program was much bigger than protocol design and recommended that we build the model through the PhUSE Semantic Technology Working Group. And we said, great, we'll do that. So we took the same funnel. You can see we're missing some of the lines, but I think they all belong in there. And we brought in all the, we brought in PhUSE, we brought in CDISC. We looked at enabling reuse of internal and publicly available information, reference and linking agency guidance, building best practices within companies, facilitating information sharing between all stakeholders, enabling creative collaborative tools. Okay, that was really great. Whoa, that was overwhelming, and where do we start? And I have to thank Scott, even though I got very upset because he kept saying, keep it going, keep it simple. And we'd have more meetings and more discussions, and people always showed up for our meetings, but we didn't get anything really accomplished except for we had really good meetings. And so finally Scott gave us the ultimate push, and he said we needed to have the white paper completed by July of 2016. That was the best thing, as I said, that could ever happen to us. And we not only got the white paper done, but we also have ended up with a manuscript out of it because we put such effort into doing the white paper that we had so much materials that we actually are ready to send it in for publication. So, as I said, I'm in love with the PhUSE deliverable template. I recommend every group use it. I found one of the most important areas here was definitions. It really, lots of times our papers have glossaries, but how do we really understand what's going on, and I really found that the definitions were really, really, really helpful. But the first thing in filling out the template was, what's our name? You have clinical program design, you have clinical design program, program development, et cetera, et cetera. You have programs, frameworks, tools, et cetera, et cetera. There's not one conventional set of terms. We realized that what we're doing is clinical development design. And right now we're defining the framework for clinical development design. Our name conversations brought into focus where and what is our ontology or vocabulary set of items for clinical development design. But working on the title actually helped focus us. So, so we started with the overview, purpose, and scope. So on overview, what are we doing here? The Clinical Development Design Framework aims to provide structure and rigor to the design of clinical development programs and to improve design decision making. Purpose, how are we doing it? We're trying to deliver a plan for capturing structured design thinking in clinical research. And scope, again, what is our first step? How do we take baby steps and keep it going? So providing the structure and rigor to the design process, we need to begin with language, terms, and vocabulary of the CDD. As I said, the definitions are my favorite area, and I need to thank Mitra Roca again for this section because she gave us an example from the white paper that her group did for regs to RDF. What are we talking about when we say design and decision-making terms? We define our understanding of the information model, smart program design, decision products, structured design thinking, and how it applies to CDD. So that section of the white paper really made us focus on what are decision-making terms. Next, what are CDD-specific terms? So we started out with, what does CDD framework mean? Who are the CDD stakeholders? Then Stephen Hirschfeld, who was at NICHD and is now at the Uniform Health Service, came up with 3 important steps. Step 1, set goals. Step 2, characterize intervention. Step 3, deliver a product. Then we also talk about enabling information, enabling data, product development considerations, and risk management. So we have our high-level terms. But now we needed our vocabulary. We loved Tim Williams' presentation at the March 2016 CSS and said, but where's our data? Where do we get this data to put into our RDF, to put into any of our tools? So we're starting with the target product profile, quality by design, toolkit from Citi. There are FDA checklists, clinicaltrials.gov, and regulations to RDF, Mitra and her group's work. And once we have the data, we can use that for information modeling and with semantic technology tools. But right now, we're just working on the vocabulary. Okay. So the next one was a problem statement. Now, in many papers we write, we put the problem statement at the very beginning of the paper. And if you notice the PhUSE deliverable template, it comes in later. And I actually think that's really a good idea because it was really important for us to get our definitions and scope of the project before we could actually write a really good problem statement. So in our problem statement, we talk about a structured, providing a defined structure with data and links between the data, design decision assumptions, constraints, and supportive data, cross-industry information model and terminology, because a lot of times we all talk the same language in the industry, but we have a difficult time saying, well, what do you call it at your place? What do you call it our place? So here's an example that Laszlo put together for a schematic, and you'll see, so we talk about our decisions, we talk about contributes to, depends on, and we have our constraints and our information, and we intend to bring all those into our model, into our work. So for our recommendations, okay, we want to build a CDD ontology that everyone can share. So right now we are working with Red Cap at Vanderbilt because Dale Plummer and I are at Vanderbilt and we have access to the database, and we're using the sources mentioned in order to added to the database. Now, we would love to use Smartsheets, but we didn't have that kind of money. So we needed to find something we could share and that was better than Excel and that we had more security on it. So we want to build links and determine redundancies, determine an agreed upon definition for each of the terms. And what we did was we took the work that Sia, Maria, and Kirsten have done on building ontologies. They had some great slides and they gave us great examples of building ontologies. And normally they have all these post-its. So Dale and I spent a day creating post-its, but we put it in REDCap rather than on a chalkboard. We're hoping someday, if we got enough money, we can download all these terms from REDCap to Post-its, and then we can move them around on a board. And we're still working on the best way or how we could maybe do it online. But right now we're building basically the Post-its, the ontology in REDCap. Then from here we can take it to CMAPs. We can use Neo4j as Maria and Kirsten have done, and we can build semantic technology base for the CDD. I still have lots of questions for Jeff and Tim Williams, but we need, as soon as we get our ontology built, then I'll bug them with more questions. So I have dreaming next steps. This is an example from Mitra Roca's group. Rashul Hassan did this, and this is Part 201 labeling, and it's a CMAP, and it shows the relationships between all these different parts of a Section 201, which is great. But we don't even have a Section 201 yet to pull from. So but this is it's just a really great model for us to think about. And but right now this is two-dimensional, and then we get to Maria and Kirsten's work, which is three-dimensional. This is just the ultimate. This is Neo4j, and it's the AstraZeneca's designed to deliver God. And one of the things that we've taken from this is if you have this in an interactive screen, you click on each bubble and all the lines appear for that bubble. So I have put up evaluation of standards. And you see that then you get all this information about evaluation of standards. And so that's exactly what we're trying to do through REDCap. Right now we'll have it on basically it looks like a CRF. You fill a CRF with your evaluation of standards and the information, the links that you wish to bring up and wish to find whether there's redundancies, what's a parent, what's a grandparent, what's a child, and see how this information is all linked together. And finally, we can always use reviewers for vocabulary. I do have the project request forms. Scott has asked me to update it, so I will put all of this into our new project request form. Please, we can use reviewers. If you want to join us in REDCap, we would really, really love it because basically I guess I'm taking wording from Frederick because I remember working with Frederick on the protocol design or one of his first CDIS tasks into RDF and how it's kind of brute force. And Dale and I have realized that right now we're at the brute force level of trying to bring in all of these different streams of vocabulary into one place, and we can use your help. We can definitions and terminology. We really appreciate any questions that you asked, any links and understanding the redundancies. As I've said over and over again, there's a whole lot of stuff out there, but it's not in one place, and it would just be wonderful to get it into one place. So I will pass it on.
Thank you, Mary, for your presentation. That was very, very, very informative. While she passes it over to Lex Jansen, Lex is for SAS Institute, and we'll be talking about a Define-XML project that's ongoing within the Optimizing Data Standards group. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat page, and we'll answer them at the end of the session. So, without further ado, I will turn it over to Lex.
Thank you. And I first want to make sure that you see my presentation and hear my voice.
Check to both, so you're good to go.
Okay, good. I will be talking about the working group optimizing the use of data standards, and specifically the project called Define-XML version 2 Stylesheet recommendations. So a little bit of background. Define-XML version 2 is an XML-based CDISC metadata standard that is used to describe tabular data structures. And the main use case for Define-XML is to submit is for submissions to regulatory authorities to be able to describe data sets by means of metadata. So when a regulatory reviewer gets a Define-XML, they can view the contents of this Define-XML document not by looking at the raw XML data, but looking through a browser and see a HTML rendition of that XML document. And that HTML rendition is created by a so-called XSL style sheet. Well, CDISC, when they publish Define-XML packages, they come with a default XSL style sheet to view the Define-XML. But it needs to be said that the style sheet itself is not part of the Define-XML standard. It's basically an example that can be used. Currently, the Define-XML style sheets, as published by CDISC, are published under an MIT license, which means that it can be adapted by other people. And actually, sponsors are completely free to use the CDISC style sheet, or maybe adapt it, or even create their own completely from scratch. The issue with this is that this can lead to variations into what reviewers see when they want to review a Define-XML document. And sometimes it has even caused issues because customizations did not work well in the FDA or PMDA environments. So this is just an idea how the current style sheet looks. Probably most of you have seen it. It displays metadata for data sets or for variables within the dataset. The Define-XML version 2 style sheet recommendations project has two phases, and we are currently in phase 1 with the project. Phase 1 is to take the current CDISC style sheet and turn it into a turn it into a Define-XML version 2 style sheet for regulatory submissions, more towards a standard style sheet that might be referenced by the FDA. And we are looking into reviewing the current style sheet and updating it and implementing most common requests that we have seen, and also making the style sheet more complete. Since this is a regulatory style sheet, we want to make sure that we are compatible with regulatory requirements, that it is a stable style sheet and complete. We currently have been working, I think, somewhere since August. Every 2 weeks we have a meeting, and we have a very small team. Usually 2 or 3 people are meeting. And we definitely need more people at this moment in phase 1. We need people help reviewing the currently available style sheet. It would be great if you shared feedback on the style sheet that you've received when you used it in a submission. And we also have tasks like testing the style sheet to make sure that it works in various environments. So we are well on the way with phase 1 in the project, but we definitely can use more people. Phase 2 of the project, which we have not started because we are doing this only after phase 1 has been completed. What we want to do is that what other things can we do with a style sheet and not so much targeted towards submission? Can we make it more interactive? Can we make use of more modern standards like HTML5 or cascading style sheets version 3? Can we make more advanced use of JavaScript to make the style sheet more interactive and maybe not only for review but also for use within the company? Maybe use JavaScript libraries or web frameworks that are around like jQuery or Bootstrap. And the 2 pictures that you see on the bottom of the screen just show some examples of what you could do. You could make things more interactive. So if you have an interest to join our team, you can contact either Dmitry Kolosov, who is the team lead, or me, and I'm the CDISC Define-XML team liaison. And we would be really happy to have more people join this team, because we are just a small team, so we need more input. So that was my small presentation, and I'm going to turn the presentation back to Chris.
Hi, thank you, Lex. That was a great presentation. I do think there's a lot of good things being done within this project and the other projects within the optimizing data standards group. So I'd strongly suggest people get involved and you know, help out here, because these are things that we're trying to make better and help the rest of the industry, and it'd be useful. So I just wanted to quickly wrap up before I answer questions. Actually, I'll go to the questions first. I think we had one or two questions. A question, I think, probably for you, Mary Banach. There was a question about whether the CDD ontology could potentially, or can it be in RDF format?
That's our intention. That's totally our intention. We thought on day one it would be RDF format, but we realized we have to build it first.
Okay, great, thank you. And again, if there's any other questions within that you have that you want to plop into the chat channel, just let me know. I'll check one more time before I get off. But I do want to remind people, here's the website for the registration for the Computational Science Symposium in Silver Spring, Maryland. So I suggest you go there and register as soon as possible. I do want to remind people of the agenda. We'll have a great session, a workshop on Sunday evening where we talk about linked data and graph databases. And then we will have, sorry, got to get rid of this thing. And then the FDA will do a session describing sort of the day in the life of a CDR reviewer and an insight into the review and analysis process. So there's a lot of good information there, from non-clinical, the analysis tools they're using, and so forth. So you can really understand how the FDA reviewers are accepting and reviewing the data. We'll then break out into our working group sessions, have another workshop in the evening and a poster session, and then we'll have our working group sessions on Tuesday as well. So the goal is to bring the teams and the working groups together, check on progress, and move forward with new progress and new opportunities in the next 12 months. Let me just double check one more time for any questions. There are none. So again, I would like to thank, jump back to my agenda here. I'd like to once again thank our speakers today. I think there's some really exciting work being done in these groups to move forward. And I strongly suggest that you consider contributing to each and every one of these projects, or pick a project that you like, or talk to your manager about the opportunities to get involved with the industry and increase and bring this information back to your companies about what's going on. So one last plug, I suggest you all register for the March conference. Last year we sold out 3 weeks before the beginning of the conference, so we will sell out this year, and unfortunately we're going to have to say no if you don't register. So please do. So again, I thank you for everybody's time today, and we'll end the webinar at this point, and this will be recorded, so you'll be able to share it with other coworkers and colleagues in the industry who missed it today. So thank you all, and have a wonderful day and rest of the week.